Hi, I'm Barry Farber, and this is In Search of the Magic Tree. What magic are we looking for? Well, if you think about a tree, several things come to mind. 1, the roots, the foundation for something great. 2, the branches, representing the connection and continuation of our legacy as we pass down the values and beliefs to the next generation. And 3, potential, something that starts as small as an acorn and becomes a giant oak. We're going to explore how we can build the mind, body, and spirits of our children, how to raise our kids with key traits like patience, positive attitudes, courage, empathy, determination, and more. Join me on this adventure as we talk to celebrities, athletes, entertainers, business leaders, educators, brain surgeons, and more about the magic to building success at an early age. Welcome back again. This is Barry Farber, and you're in for a special treat today. We have professional mentalist, magician, athlete, finalist of America's Got Talent, but most importantly, for something that'll relate to this show, father of 3, proud father of 3. I don't know how he does it. He travels so much, but we're going to hear about that. Oz Pearlman, thanks for joining us, buddy.
The one and only Barry Farber. How you doing, buddy?
The one and only. Oz, this is what I've been waiting for. We've had all these interviews over the years, television, radio, podcasts, and it's a different version because we can't see each other. And for the first time, we're going to go into the magic of the mind and the podcast and learn about what you do. More importantly, what you do. How do you raise 3 kids? Obviously, you have a wonderful wife, but I'd love to start out right now about what changed. How did it change your life with the 3 kids you have now, Louis, Theodore, and Esme, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. How I married way out of my pay grade. That's the number one answer. You know what I mean? I think the most pivotal decision in life is who you choose to be your spouse and your partner in life. And boy, did I get lucky. I nailed it. I don't know why she said yes, but
join the club.
That's the blessing is we have 3 beautiful kids together. It's unbelievably joyful. I think it gives a lot of people a sense of what's most important in life. You get a nice little reset that you're not numero uno anymore. Those kids are. And that you really need to start to balance because I think the mortality kicks in. When you have kids, until then, you're invincible. And I still feel invincible, but now I feel like, hey, they're the most important thing. And you can't go backwards in time. I'm sure you have, and I have. We have the good fortune of meeting people that are very influential, successful, wealthy in our lives, both my clients and friends. And I don't care how much money you have in the bank, the clock keeps ticking for everybody. And some of those memories when they're young, and when they want you in your life, when they're teenagers, I haven't gotten there yet. You have, but I think they're going to be like, Dad, get out of here. I don't want to see you. So while they still want my presence, I'm trying to really do a delicate balance of building my business, building, a nest egg for them so that they have a great future, but also being with them, sometimes having to say no. It's a powerful thing to say no. And that your time with your family and your loved ones is more important than a paycheck.
I'm thinking about all the accomplishments you have as an athlete and running, these marathons, which we'll get into, but how busy your schedule is. Tell the audience, as a mentalist, magician, athlete, and all the things you do, how do you, because what's most important when you're with your kids is being there, present with them, not thinking about something, not on your phone. What are some of the things you do to really be there with your kids and engage?
Probably procrastinate work more than I should is probably the bad answer, but I just try to dial in. I'm guilty as anybody else, but putting the phone away nowadays is borderline impossible, but you need to make a concerted effort. I've gleaned some of the best information ever when I've been at various events. Like I do corporate events. I also sometimes do private parties, and I'll never forget, I did an event. It was a wedding, and I don't do that many weddings. So this is important. And the father of the bride got up and he gave a speech. And he talked about the fact that when he was growing up, or when these kids were growing up, he made a concerted effort. He has 3 kids. To every single year, he does one trip with each kid individually. And he says to them, what's important to you? Not what's important to me as your parent. What do you love? What's your passion? and getting to spend, even if it's not a full on trip, but even an afternoon or a few hours one on one with each of my children, where they're the only one I focus on. There is no sibling rivalry. There's no, do I have to take a phone call? And I really spend that time focused on them. And I feel like that reaps such rewards and such dividends because they've got you all to themselves. You learn more about them. You get that inner like stuff that they won't give you when they're with everyone else. And I really make that effort. I make that a point, every single month to get a little bit of time one-on-one with them, as well as if you can, with your spouse, with my wife. It's so important to have date nights,
Yes.
and just recheck in because you lose a little bit of that intimacy and that real like knowing each other. You start taking each other for granted when it's all kids or all everyone together. You need one-on-one time.
That's really well said, Oz. I was thinking about, you don't realize how important it is to spend the time with your kid one-on-one or your wife and not even say anything because you're engaged in something they love and their enthusiasm comes out and you'll learn things about them you really didn't know about them until you just stop talking. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to ask you something because the book, The Adventures of Little Billy in Search of the Magic Tree, which you read to your kids, and I appreciate the quote you gave.
Yeah, they loved it. They got a kick out of it. Great illustrations, good message, a lot of fun. Kept their attention. Barry, that's not an easy thing. I got kids running around, so if I can get them settled in, I should have gotten a photo for you, but I usually put the phone away during story time. But I had my daughter on my lap. Each kid has their own they have their little mini couches with their names on them. The standard Pottery Barn gift when somebody's kid's born. And they were all nestled in, man. They liked it. They enjoyed Little Billy.
I love it. And just a pleasure to know that you read to them. I don't need pictures. It's a great feeling to hear that. But there's 5 messages in there. We talk about courage, patience, attitude, determination, empathy, and how we can get the kids at an early age to understand that in their own way. So I wanted to ask you, being somebody who can read minds and body language and how you get to such a cognitive level with people, how do you teach empathy to children? Is there something that you do, or is there something from those different attributes that you do with your kids?
So I think empathy is so important in younger kids and throughout. I mean, even in adults, to be honest. And one of those things that we instill in them from a young age. There's somebody online named Dr. Becky. Just incredible advice. I follow her Instagram. My wife kind of put me onto her. And where instead of saying I'm sorry, which you want your kids to obviously feel they're sorry, but saying I'm sorry is very easy, just roll off the tongue if you hurt someone. Instead, we always have them check, are you okay? And that allows you to have some sort of sense of how that other person is feeling, really instituting the golden rule and letting them know, how do you think somebody feels when you do this to them? And just stuff that at a young age, I think goes a little deeper into your mind as to giving you a set of morals, guiding principles, and really just the idea of giving back and realizing how fortunate we are to have a roof over our head, to have food every day, like things that not everybody has. And I think at a young age, you only see the world through your own eyes and the people around you. And it's just so important to have that gratitude and know how lucky you are and to find a way to give back to others who aren't as fortunate. And so I make a point of that on a very regular basis.
There's a saying from a book in the 1920s called I Dare You, and it was catch a passion for helping others and a richer life comes back to you. And, when my kids were very young, even though some people said it might not be a good idea because we were bringing food and packing it for people who couldn't get out of the house or had disabilities or problems, and they saw some really bad situations. But I can't tell you how many times they look back and they talk about that. And it's that appreciation, a hands-on approach that makes them realize how lucky they are. And that's a great thing you're doing with your kids. I can't go on this show for so long and talk about your accomplishments without being amazed at you. At age 14, you were performing, kid shows. And I was curious, how did you learn anything from that with working with these kids then?
I learned early on how to maintain people's attention. And I think kids are the toughest audience by far because kids will be brutally honest with you. They're not going to sugarcoat, especially the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. They're going to really let you have it. They don't have the social niceties in place yet that adults sometimes do. I think it just came a matter of learning how to get people's attention, learning how to maintain their attention. I saw very early on kind of a sense of which kids I felt were well-raised, well-disciplined, came from homes where I think the parents are instilling strong values in them versus kids that kind of just ran amok and did whatever they wanted and never had those guidelines. Like I don't really see discipline as important, but as a parent, think of myself as the guardrails. If you're driving on a road and there's no guardrails and it's late at night and it's dark and it's kind of wrapping around, you might fly off the guardrails. So I'm there to kind of provide my kids those boundaries where I don't want them necessarily to be scared of me. I want them to love me, but I want them to also know that I'm the adult and I'm giving them the rules to live by based on, the things that I've learned over time. And I find that very important. There's a lot of parenting styles that involve kind of just let them do whatever they want. And I see my role as being somebody who provides you that guidance and those boundaries and those rules.
To say that you don't have determination and a work ethic is crazy, because what you've accomplished with, even when you won the Chicago 50-mile ultra marathon in 2015, 5 hours, 25 minutes and 26 seconds, and also ran the Ironman, all the different things you do. Do you do anything unique to teach them work ethic at a young age? I mean, what goes on with you and your wife that happens during the day with the kids when you're with them?
I mean, I try, but some of this stuff is I don't know if it's nature or nurture. For example, I was just very, very obsessive, you could call it, or passionate, or whatever you would. But if I took an interest or a fancy in something, I would become very driven and obsessed with it. And I think that's an internal character trait. I don't know if that's something that's trainable, because I don't really see it in my sisters who were raised by my parents as well. I think it's a bit innate. And to a lot of people, once you find something you really love, you jump in, right? That's the case. If it's something you don't like for example, I liked math, so math was interesting to me. So I was very focused and I would do well at math and I loved learning it because I found it interesting, versus I hated English class and writing papers. And you could have tried to force a round peg into a square hole and tell me, write more papers, do this. But if I didn't like it, I think the best part of life is finding the things you like and seeing what you can do with them. Are they just going to be a hobby, a passion, or can you actually convert it in some very lucky instances into your living? In which case, it doesn't really feel like work as much. It feels like something you love doing. I have friends who are computer programmers who have loved doing that since they were young. And now the fact that they get to do it for a living, keep in mind, I'm sure at some points it still feels like work and you'll still complain. I'm still a neurotic Jew. I'll find a way to complain, Barry. But at my core, I love it. I love what I'm doing. When I go in front of a crowd and do a show for 35 people or 10,000, I'm getting that rush, that fulfillment, and that feeling of how will this work? Every time I do it, it's kind of jumping off a cliff and not knowing exactly what will happen.
There's something interesting about being a parent. You could read all the books on it. You could do this, but you're really learning as you go. And I can't even tell you how many times I thought to myself, I remember interviewing a few brain surgeons at different universities, and they talked about the child's mind, and it got me all excited about it. So I started doing things a little differently. But is there anything that with reading, or I know that you read to your kids, I know that you're passionate about learning, but is there anything that you're doing that you feel, I want to share this with parents because I believe this really helped? And then is there anything that you think, parents shouldn't do, or you see parents doing wrong?
It's so hard to judge other people as to what they are and aren't doing correctly. The one thing that I think is huge, and especially today, is screen time, which is, I see a lot of kids that just from such a young age, and they've done so many studies about this, that below the age of 2, giving kids like a lot of screen time on a daily basis, it rewires your brain. And all of us as adults are just getting so hooked on phones, myself included. I'm guilty. I'm not judging anybody, to put your phone away for, an hour, 2 hours, or an entire day. I mean, you got to be in the jungle and not have Wi-Fi, not have any service, but man, does it make you feel reborn. I love putting the phone away for a few hours and staying fully focused in the moment. So yeah, we try to really institute, we don't have TV or screen time for our kids throughout the week. It's more of a treat on the weekends. And even then it's a little bit contained so that they don't just go to it right away. I think it allows them to engage more with the real world. And God knows in the future, they're going to have screen time nonstop once they get a little older and they're more in control of their lives. I mean, I have a first grader, a pre-K, and then a 2-year-old. So that's what I think. But at the same time, you're not going to put that genie back in the bottle. The screen time is here to stay. And in fact, if they don't know how to do it, they're going to be behind the times. That's one of the big ones. I think a lot of it is letting your kids' kind of curiosity guide you. I try to find what interests them and then really jump on it. Like my son loves to play games, card games. And so when we play Uno or when we play Sorry or all these different games, I try to create a little bit of educational things within it. We play Uno and I try to throw the math in there and just try to kind of be enriching while having fun. Make learning fun is the big part of it. And when it becomes a chore, or you set it up as, okay, we got to sit down now, we have to do your homework, they will resist. But if you can somehow pull that little sleight of hand trick and make them think, oh, we're playing a fun game and they're learning while playing, that's the holy grail, right?
Right. That's brilliant. I don't think there's a show where the guest hasn't mentioned getting rid of the phone, putting it down, turning it off, and focusing on your child and seeing what's important to them, finding their passion or whatever gets them excited and really going into that. That's perfect. I love that. I would love to know, I think sometimes we take it for granted that the kids today have more than we did, or they have a lot of things at their fingertips. So I was wondering, is attitude? Do you talk about attitude? I mean, you have an amazing attitude. I don't know anybody, and especially dealing with failure. I mean, to achieve what you did, if you didn't have any failures, I'd be very shocked. But do you teach them about when something goes wrong and how to deal with it, and an attitude, how important that is, or are they too young?
No, I absolutely do. I think that kind of resilience, pick yourself up, brush it off. It's a funny kind of joke. When you have one kid, the people with one kid, the kid barely falls, doesn't scrape a knee or anything. You run in. Oh my God, are you okay? Oh my God. Then you have a second kid. You kind of look and you check if there's blood in the third kid. If there's not a bone sticking out, you don't even approach it. That's like the gag. And God knows 4 or 5 kids. It's like there better be blood squirting.
We both have 3 kids. I can relate. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you realize these kids are not they're not a porcelain doll that you drop and breaks. They're resilient. They need to get their scrapes. They need to get their bumps. They need to get some dirt under their fingernails. We live in such a sterile world, and especially some of the people over the last 2 years where you have a pandemic and you go really off the reservation. Kids need to learn some things for themselves. They've got to touch that stove once to get a little burnt. Don't catch on fire, but you need to learn boundaries, and you can't teach them that. It's something that, I remember when I was a kid, I didn't listen to what my parents said half the time because my parents were a supporting role in my life. Like I was the star and they're a supporting cast member as far as you're concerned. I didn't, I turned about 19 or 20 before I realized my parents aren't just my parents. They're 2 human beings with their own life. And you start to see them as, hey, they're just 2 people who had me, that we're in each other's life, but you don't see your parents as adults, I find, unless you're incredibly emotionally mature until much later in life. And so with my kids, I think such a big part of it is, I want them to fail. I need them to toughen up. And I've had tons of failures in my life. You mentioned America's Got Talent. I was a finalist. I got 3rd. You know what, Barry? When I tried out 2 years earlier, I didn't even get on the show. So when people tell me, oh my God, I didn't get on, I go, neither did I, man. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, you got to be in the right time, right place, and with the right experience. That was the universe telling me, hey, man, if I would have gotten on that year with 500 or 600 less shows under my belt and a different attitude, I might have gone nowhere. So thank goodness I got on when I got on, and that I was ready in that moment to deliver the best performance possible. Don't rush. Certain things in life come at the right moment, and certain things, you have a startup, it goes, belly up, you lost all this money, see it as a blessing. Find the silver lining. Say, hey, you know what? Maybe it wasn't supposed to happen right now. Maybe I'm going to take what happened and I'm going to turn it into a positive down the line. You got to take your attitude and adjust it to the positive side. I mean, there's people that in 2 similar instances, they get into a car accident, they lose a leg. One of them, goes down the path of drinking, self-destruction, drug addiction. Another one starts, training, gets a prosthetic leg and is running a marathon 3 years later. These are not like pie in the sky. This is actual different forks in the road of what could happen because you decide how you're going to approach the curves in your life. If you've got a positive disposition or one that says, I'm not going to let this drag me down, I'm going to be better than this. And that's something you learn early in life. And that could be a small bump in the road or a huge, cataclysmic catastrophe. And I don't want to teach my kids that I'm going to fix everything for them. I let them try to fix things for themselves.
It's refreshing, Oz, that you're talking this way because, I've watched your career for many years and had you at events and seen you at events live and not just on TV and all the shows you've been on. And I see somebody who is like perfection. Like I'm not, when I watch these shows, he's got to mess up here. I never see you mess up. It's like my friends say, how does he fix every time people are just blown away, the Falcons to sports teams to corporations. And then I would figure to myself, this is a kind of person that would be like crazy, like disciplining their kids and making sure, because and you're the opposite. You're calm. You want to learn about what's important to them. You want to. So it's a really refreshing to hear how you're raising your children, and it's nice to hear.
Well, I got to tell you, the first and foremost thing, like again, I think there's no parenting playbook. There's a million books, but you got to learn for yourself. The number one thing I want for my kids is for them to know how much I love them. And it's not like, I'm not saying this in a cliche way, but I could literally get hit by a bus today. There's no way. And if the thing they remembered most about me in life is that they like that I adored them and loved them and like that they're the most important people in my life. I think that's number one. Everything else comes from that. I think if your kids feel loved, then when you are disciplining them, there's never that thought in my mind of, oh my God, did I disappoint them? Do they not love me? Like if it comes from a place of love where your parents absolutely love you unconditionally, then everything else, the other pieces fall into place. And I didn't realize that until I met my kids. You think you do. Again, everybody says it. And I had a dog before and I was like, oh, I love my dog. And then, you have a first kid and you don't care about your dog at all anymore. It's like until you meet them and realize this is hardwired into your DNA, or it was into mine, that I just looked at them and they were the greatest person I ever met in my life, that's what I want. That's what I would want for them forever. And to, know how much I love them. And then everything from that, like, if you're disciplining them and they know, and you're mad at them or whatever, they know you love them. And I think that regardless of that, they will know that you're helping them. Your number one priority is their well-being.
What you just said, I still, my daughter's 30, my sons are in their 20s, and I still kiss them. I hug them every time I see them, every time they leave. I feel like every second is so precious when I'm around them, because now they're all out of the house. I think back about how much, you just want to squeeze every drop of time with them. For parents, when I hear, I can't wait for my kid to leave. It's so good. They're out of the house. We're free. Oh my God. I live for them. I love them. And what you give to them in love and caring and what you just said comes back tenfold, because they see that. And I think doing that, what you just said, the discipline becomes easier because they know you care versus just doing it to do it. So I'm thinking to myself, I remember asking you what your definition of success is. Every show, I'd say, what's your definition of success? And we can go back, but I'm just curious now, since it's been after you've had children, what is it today? And I'm sure you've talked a lot about it already, but just what is your definition of success today, having a family like this?
Well, I mean, there's all different, pieces of your life and as to what I would describe as success. But I think overall, it's always having a drive to achieve. Now, that could be in any facet, but for me, I need goals. I need very well laid out goals, which if it's for a race, I'm going to run the fastest race, or if I'm going to try and raise money for charity, I'm going to try and raise the most money I possibly can. I want to exceed my own expectations. I want to set the bar just out of reach. I want to be jumping and, I can just barely graze the rim, but I'm not slam dunking yet. And that's what keeps me motivated in life. It's not kind of accolades from the past. Kind of as soon as something's done, I like to enjoy it, savor it, be mindful, but also see what I'm still growing towards in the future. And that's I think kind of a double-edged sword, where some of the time I'm too focused on the future to enjoy the present. And I think the kids really got me grounded in that regards, because you see it. It's like sand passing through your fingertips. They grow up so quick. Every one of my kids, they've gotten older, and I just see it growing up. And you tell me, 21, 30, like that'll happen in the blink of an eye. I mean, if I could be lucky enough. And then they're going to be adults. And a crazy statistic is that most people, their kids, they will see them for 19 years, because you'll have them at your house until they're 18. But here's the crazy part. Let's say you had your kids when you're 30, and at 18, they moved out, so you're 48. You will only see them for one more year for most people if your kids move away, because think about it. The next 26 years of your life, let's say you see them 2 weeks out of every year, which is a lot. That's a lot of time. Christmas, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, maybe you get together for another few days. 26 times 2 is 1 year. And at that point, you'll be 74 years old. So that's the average life expectancy. So it's this crazy statistic. So you really have to gobble it up. I think that being a good family unit, where me and my wife have a great relationship, and if we have any issues, we don't go to bed angry at one another. We talk it out. We really get things out there. And I think learn from the mistakes of our parents' past. Like both of our parents are divorced, which I think made us very aware of how do we communicate better? How do we have a great relationship so that our kids feel like they're in a loving, happy household? And sometimes that's tough talk. Sometimes, like you said, work can overwhelm, especially when you get big amounts of success. You're on TV, gigs are nonstop. Sometimes you have to readjust and say to yourself, hey, money isn't the most important thing in life. Sometimes other things are. And being there for that special birthday, or you have to prioritize your life. And that can be a real challenge. That can be a challenge for a lot of people who might be working 2-3 jobs trying to make ends meet. I'm not complaining whatsoever. Success is its own thing. But at the end of the day, there's only 24 hours. You have to decide, what are you going to commit them to? What do you prioritize? And for most people I know, there's things you're wasting time on. You're on Instagram, you're watching TV at times. There's things that if you decided this was more important, you could pick up 20 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 30 minutes there, and suddenly you have an extra hour in the day. And maybe that's for working out, maybe that's for doing projects with your kids, but there is the time in the day that we all waste, that we fritter away, and you've got to decide what's my top priority.
Yeah. I love that. You started out with goals, and I'm a big fan of goals. And I wonder sometimes when I'm, floundering and saying, why am I not like passionate and enthusiastic today? And it's sometimes because I realized I need to put more goals down. I need to break them down and look at and start working on them more diligently, or, sometimes. But then what you said was, that's great, but you got to take a step back and realize what's important. And somebody said to me years ago, they said, success without happiness is the worst type of failure. And it made me think about some people who say, look, I've got 24 rooms in my house, but how many can I live in at one time? Who cares? What is that happiness? What gives you happiness? And I see those kids and what you do with your family, your whole family really gives a nice grounded foundation. It's awesome.
Yeah, happiness for almost everybody I know comes from within, because if you tie your happiness to external sources, especially for me, I'm in the entertainment industry, so you can start to, kind of believe the hype, and that's the worst thing that you can do. Which is, I'm always thinking to myself, and I'm still enjoying. Keep in mind, if I have a great TV spot and I really enjoy it, but I look, what did I do wrong? What could I do better? And if you're sitting there just giving yourself pats on the back, saying how great you are, and oh my God, that's not going to make you grow and improve. And so I have a great wife in the sense that she keeps my ego small. I walk through the room, I might have just been a star on stage for 1,000 people. She gets in here and she's like, there's some laundry that needs to be folded, buddy. Do your mind reading somewhere else. She gets me in check real quick, which I think is great. I have a great set of friends that have known me since I was, a teenager, who, again, they're not hyping me up. And I think that's very good to get your ego in check. And this could be no matter what you do in life, and constantly strive to do better. And I'm always finishing a show. I take notes after every single event I do, and every show I really give myself very tough critiques and say, here's what I could do better. And I think that's what's had me improving over time, and rarely kind of just sitting in some sort of level of, oh, I'm great and I'm good. Like that's a way to stagnate. You need to constantly assess yourself and give yourself strong criticism that you can do, like workable, constructive criticism, and listen to the people around you that you admire and respect, because they're going to give you real talk.
There's a lot of great ideas that you shared for parents. I don't care where they are, what part of the world, what you talked about today. But I want to, I remember reading that you actually came up with a DVD called Born to Perform Card Magic, right? And I read that this DVD sold over 100,000 copies. But what was cool was that it was the Magic Supplier got the highest ratings in history with this. And that's a heck of an accomplishment in a business that has so many of these products out there. And I think about who you are. For people out there, if they want to know more about you, and to go to ozpearlman.com, OZPEARLMAN.com, right, Oz?
Yep. And it's a weird name. It looks like Oz. So when everybody thinks that, they go, is that Oz? It should be Oz. And it's like, it should be, but it's an Israeli name. So in Hebrew, the O is kind of long. So it's Oz. So it's a weird one. It's like somebody owes you money. And then the big one is, people don't go to websites as much anymore. If you're on social media, it's at OZ The Mentalist. So that's on Instagram, Twitter. That's honestly where I post all my touring information. You can watch all my TV clips. And if you just want to waste a couple hours on your phone, going down a wormhole, you will have your mind blown. I promise you that.
I can attest to that. So it's at Oz Mentalist.
OZ The Mentalist. So Oz The Mentalist. Honestly, if you type in OZ and then you start typing, you're going to see me and Dr. Oz. It's going to be the two of us. And you'll see I'll be the one who has the word the afterwards.
Okay. I mean, I follow you, so I sometimes don't even read who I'm following, but I follow the ones that make a difference in my life. You won an Emmy for Oz Knows. You've done some crazy things. I just want to really say thank you for coming on today. Oz, one last thing you want to share with the public about what's going on down the road for you?
Big goals, big picture goals. I had a show on NBC, won an Emmy for it. Would love to have another show. I'm going to make that happen, and this one's going to run for much longer. A residency here in New York. So when you fly in, or if you live in the tri-state area, you can come see me, ideally on Broadway. But you got to wait for the time to be right, Barry. When I do it, I'm going to do it big. I'm going to do it right. And then just keep performing, living the dream, getting to watch my kids grow up. stay healthy, man. Health is wealth. Any day that I'm running is a good day.
It's a pleasure. You're a good friend, a good person. And, I really feel honored that you came on again. I know we've done many shows, but it was really enjoyable and a lot of great info. Thank you so much, Oz. Awesome.
Keep it going, everybody. Pick up a copy of Little Billy. Take it easy, everybody.